My name is Allison Hayes, and at 27 years old, my family thought I was a failure. As my perfect half-sister publicly shamed me for needing money, I held my head high and withdrew exactly $472.91. She saw it as a sign of desperation, another reason to pity the black sheep. She had no idea it was a dead man's switch, a prime number code that unlocked a video from my dead grandfather, revealing she and my stepfather had forged his will and were about to destroy his multi-billion-dollar legacy. They thought I was weak. They were about to find out how wrong they were. Before I share the rest of my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to rise above family drama. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next. I stood in the sterile light of Everwood Financial, the boutique bank my family owned, clutching my purse like a lifeline. The air smelled of polished wood and old money, the kind of place where whispers carried more weight than shouts. My half-sister Lauren stood across the counter, her designer suit gleaming under the chandeliers, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. I was here for a reason. $472.91 in cash. A precise amount. No more, no less. It wasn't just money. It was a signal, a prime number code my grandfather and I had devised years ago. Emergency. My heart thudded, but I kept my face blank, unassuming, the way I'd trained myself to be. The teller, a young woman with nervous eyes, glanced between me and Lauren. "Allison Hayes," I said quietly, sliding my ID across the marble counter. "I need to withdraw $472.91 from my account. In cash, please." Lauren's laugh sliced through the hum of the bank. "Oh, Allison, always so precise." She leaned in, her perfume overwhelming, her voice loud enough to draw stares from the suited men waiting in line. "Struggling again, are we? Let's make it 1,000, darling, on me." She waved at the teller, her manicured nails catching the light. "My sister sometimes needs a little help." The room seemed to shrink, every eye on me, the black sheep of the Davenport family. My cheeks burned, but I didn't flinch. I'd spent years perfecting this mask. Allison, the failure, the MIT dropout, the data entry clerk living in a cramped Boston apartment. Let them think that. Let them underestimate me. "No thank you," I said, my voice steady. "Just the $472.91. The teller hesitated, then counted out the bills. Lauren's pitying smile never wavered, but her eyes were cold, calculating. I took the cash, feeling the weight of every stare as I walked out, the glass doors hissing shut behind me. The Boston streets were gray, the October wind biting at my worn coat. I clutched the bills tighter, their serial numbers a key to something bigger. My grandfather's voice echoed in my head. "Trust the numbers, Allie. They never lie." I wasn't here for Mrs. Rodriguez, my sweet neighbor facing eviction, though I'd save her if I could. That amount, that exact figure, was a trigger, a test. My grandfather, the genius behind Davenport Dynamics, had left me something. I just didn't know what yet. But Lauren's public humiliation, her need to make me small, it wasn't just cruelty. It was fear. She knew something was coming, and so did I. The walk back to my apartment was a blur, the city's noise fading against the pulse in my ears. I passed Mrs. Rodriguez's door on my floor, her usual warm smile replaced by worry lines. "Allison, you're too good to me," she'd said when I promised to help. She didn't know the half of it. I locked my door, drew the blinds, and sat at my desk, the cash spread out before me. My wallet wasn't just a wallet, it was a scanner, custom-built, hidden in plain sight. I fed the bills through one by one, watching the tiny screen flicker as it read the serial numbers. My grandfather's code, my emergency. The scanner beeped, and my apartment transformed. Hidden panels in the walls slid open, revealing monitors, servers, and a tangle of wires I'd spent years maintaining. This wasn't a home, it was a fortress, a safe house my grandfather had helped me build. My data entry job, a cover. My life, a lie I'd chosen. The screens lit up and a password prompt appeared, glowing green against the dark. I typed in the sequence, my fingers trembling not from fear but from anticipation. The dead man's switch was live. A video flickered to life. My grandfather's face filled the screen, older than I remembered, his eyes heavy with secrets. "Allie," he said, his voice crackling through the speakers, "if you're seeing this, I'm gone, and you've passed the test." My throat tightened. He looked frail, his hands shaking as he adjusted his glasses. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you better, but you're the only one I trust with this." The video shifted to a log of files. Project Chimera, the source code for Davenport Dynamics' flagship cybersecurity software. It was the backbone of their empire, the reason governments and corporations paid billions for their services. But there was more. A master encryption key, glowing like a digital holy grail, and then the bombshell, a scanned document, his original will, notarized, leaving me controlling interest in the company. My breath caught. I was supposed to own it all. Then came the second document, a forged will, dated a week after his stroke, cutting me out entirely. My mother's signature was there, looping and deliberate, next to Richard's, my stepfather's. The man who'd smiled at me like a shark, who'd paid for 1 semester at MIT only to pull the plug claiming I was unstable. It wasn't generosity, it was a bribe to keep me quiet, to keep me gone. My own mother had signed away my future. I leaned back, the room spinning. The betrayal wasn't new. I'd felt it for years, in every condescending glance, every whispered judgment. But seeing it in black and white, in her handwriting, was a knife to the gut. I wanted to scream, to break something, but I didn't. I played the next log. My grandfather's voice was quieter now, urgent. "Richard's dangerous, Allie. He's compromised Chimera. There's a back door. If they find out you know, they'll come for you." I sat there, the weight of his words sinking in. My family wasn't just cruel, they were criminals, and I was the only one who could stop them. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. My fingers flew across the keyboard, diving into Project Chimera's code. Line by line, I saw it, the back door my grandfather had warned about. It was subtle, buried deep, a masterpiece of deception. The software seemed invincible, but it was a lie. Richard had forced the developers to build a vulnerability, one that let him siphon data without a trace. Every client, banks, hospitals, governments, was exposed, and they were about to sell it all in a multi-billion-dollar merger with a foreign conglomerate, leaving millions vulnerable. I needed an ally. Marcus Thorne was the only name that came to mind. My grandfather's old lawyer, now retired, living off the grid in Maine. I found his number in an encrypted file, dialed it on a burner phone, and waited. His voice was gruff, unchanged. "Allison, you triggered the switch." "They're selling a lie, Marcus," I said, my voice low. "There's a back door in Chimera. Richard built it, and they forged the will." He cursed softly. "I told your grandfather not to trust that snake. Richard's got blood on his hands, Allison. If he knows you're digging, he won't hesitate to bury you." As he spoke, my apartment sensors blipped. A red light flashed on my dashboard. Network intrusion detected. Then another. Someone was at the building's security gate. My pulse spiked. They were here. Already. I didn't think. I acted. My grandfather and I had planned for this. I hit a switch, and an electromagnetic pulse rippled through the hallway, frying any electronics the intruders carried. Sprinklers kicked on, a distraction to slow them down. I grabbed my go-bag, laptop, cash, fake IDs, and slipped into the maintenance tunnels beneath the building. My heart pounded, but my hands were steady. I'd trained for this moment, even if I'd prayed it would never come. The tunnels were damp, the air thick with rust and mildew. I moved fast, my boots echoing in the dark. My grandfather's voice rang in my head. "You're stronger than they know, Allie." I didn't feel strong. I felt hunted. But I kept moving, emerging near the Boston Harbor, where an old workshop waited. Another of my grandfather's secrets. Inside, I collapsed against the wall, my breath ragged. I was safe for now. But the weight of it all, my family's betrayal, the danger, the lies, hit me like a tidal wave. I curled up on the cold floor, clutching the laptop, and let myself cry. Just for a moment. Then I wiped my face and opened the video logs again. My grandfather's voice filled the room, soft and steady. "You can do this, Allie. You were always the best of us." I wasn't alone. Not really. He'd given me everything I needed. I just had to be brave enough to use it. The workshop by Boston Harbor smelled of oil and salt, its windows fogged with years of neglect. I sat on a metal stool, my grandfather's laptop glowing in the dim light, his video logs looping on repeat. His apologies tore at me. "I should have fought harder for you, Allie." Each word was a reminder of the life I'd lost, the family that had cast me out. But the tears were gone now, replaced by something sharper. Resolve. My hands moved over the keyboard, checking the workshop security feeds. The cameras showed nothing but empty docks and gulls, but I wasn't fooled. Richard and Lauren knew I'd accessed something. They wouldn't stop. I opened my go bag, pulling out a burner phone and a stack of encrypted drives. My grandfather had taught me to plan for the worst, and I had. The workshop was another fortress. Motion sensors, reinforced locks, a backup server hidden in the floor. I activated the perimeter alarms and leaned back, my eyes burning from lack of sleep. The laptop pinged, pulling me back. Another intrusion attempt, this one more sophisticated, probing my firewalls like a scalpel. They were getting closer. I thought of Mrs. Rodriguez, her warm kitchen, her stories about her granddaughter's dreams of studying engineering. I'd promised to help her, and I would, but this was bigger now. If Richard's backdoor in Project Chimera went public, it wouldn't just ruin Davenport Dynamics, it would devastate millions of lives. Bank accounts drained, medical records exposed, entire systems collapsing. I couldn't let that happen. I pulled up my grandfather's logs again, searching for anything I'd missed. One file caught my eye, labeled Phoenix. Not a program, but a protocol, a failsafe he'd never mentioned. My heart raced as I opened it, skimming lines of code and handwritten notes. It was incomplete, a framework for exposing the back door without crashing the system. He'd trusted me to finish it. I swallowed hard, the weight of his faith pressing down on me. A noise outside snapped me alert, a low hum, like a drone. I killed the lights and crept to the window, peering through a crack in the boards. A black SUV idled at the edge of the dock, its windows tinted. My sensors hadn't picked it up. Whoever they were good. I grabbed my bag, slung it over my shoulder and slipped out the back, moving low along the water's edge. The cold bit at my skin, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. Not when I was this close. I found a payphone a mile away, rusted but functional. I dialed Marcus again, my voice barely above a whisper. They found the apartment. I'm at the harbor now. Get out of Boston, he growled. They're not playing, Allison. Richard's got connections, private security, maybe worse. I'm not running, I said, surprising myself with how steady I sounded. Not yet. He sighed, heavy and tired. Your grandfather always said you were stubborn. Be careful, kid. I hung up, the wind howling around me. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore, I was fighting for him, for Mrs. Rodriguez, for every person my family had betrayed. The Phoenix Protocol wasn't just a plan, it was my way out of this nightmare. The call came the next morning, just as I was piecing together the Phoenix Protocol. My burner phone buzzed, and I froze when I saw the number. Uncle Leo, my mother's brother, the family's so-called peacemaker. His voice was warm, dripping with concern. Allison, we're worried about you. Come to dinner at the estate. Let's talk, make things right. I gripped the phone, my jaw tight. I knew a trap when I heard one. Marcus had already warned me. Leo had been on Richard's payroll for years, quiet payments funneled through shell companies. But I also saw an opportunity. If I could get inside, play their game, I might learn more about the merger, the timeline, their plans. I took a deep breath and let my voice waver, just enough. Okay, Leo, I'd like that. I hung up and got to work. I needed to sell this. I made a fake call to a non-existent therapist, speaking loud enough for any bugs to pick up. I just want to feel like I belong again, I said, my voice cracking for effect. I'm so tired of fighting them. If Richard and Lauren were listening, and I knew they were, they'd think I was breaking. Good. The Davenport estate loomed like a fortress of glass and stone, its lights glowing against the night sky. I wore a simple dress, my hair loose, my face scrubbed clean to play the part of the fragile, wayward daughter. But my go-bag was stashed nearby, hidden in a storm drain, and my grandfather's laptop was safe at the harbor. I wasn't walking in blind. Leo greeted me at the door, his smile too wide, his arms open for a hug I didn't return. Allison, you look, well, he said, his eyes flickering with something I couldn't place. Guilt, maybe, or fear. Dinner was a performance. Lauren, radiant in silk, poured wine and gushed about family unity. Richard sat at the head of the table, his gaze cold and unyielding. My mother was there too, her hands folded tightly, her eyes avoiding mine. The air was thick with lies, every word a calculated move. Lauren handed me a gift, a diamond-studded smartwatch, glittering under the chandelier. Welcome home, Allison, she said, her voice syrupy. I forced tears, clutching the watch like it meant something. Thank you, I whispered, my voice breaking just right. I excused myself to the powder room, my heart pounding. Inside, I pulled out my micro toolkit, a gift from my grandfather, and cracked open the watch. As expected, a tiny microphone and GPS tracker blinked inside. I disabled them, slipping in my own audio bug, a near-invisible device I'd built myself. I snapped the watch shut and slipped it on, Kit returning to the table with a shy smile. Over dessert, I tested them. I found something, I said, my voice soft, hesitant. Grandfather's will. It wasn't what you told me. Richard's fork paused midair. Lauren's smile froze. My mother's face paled. It was for your own good, Allison, my mother said, her voice thin. You weren't ready for that responsibility. I nodded, playing along, but my mind was racing. They didn't know about the back door. Not yet, but they were scared, and that was enough for now. Back at the harbor, I listened to the audio from the bugged watch. The static crackled, then cleared, and I heard them, Richard and Lauren, alone in his study. She's weaker than I thought, Lauren said, her voice smug. Crying over a watch, pathetic. Richard laughed, low and cruel. She's no threat, the board votes in 2 days, once the merger's signed, we're untouchable. My hands clenched, nails biting into my palms. They thought they'd won. They thought I was broken. But the audio kept rolling, giving me the final piece. The merger's board meeting, 11 a.m., 2 days from now. I had my window. I spent the next day refining the Phoenix Protocol. It wasn't just about exposing the back door, it was about doing it publicly, irreversibly. I worked through the night, my eyes gritty, my coffee cold. The code was complex, a delicate balance of exposing the flaw without destroying the system entirely. My grandfather's framework was brilliant, but it was my additions that made it a weapon. A non-destructive audit, a live demonstration, a data package for the SEC and the press. Every move had to be perfect. I thought of Mrs. Rodriguez again, her granddaughter's shy smile when she talked about MIT. I thought of my grandfather, his voice breaking in those logs. I thought of my mother's signature on that forged will. The anger kept me sharp, but it was the hope, the idea that I could fix this, that kept me going. The morning of the board meeting, I sat in the workshop, the laptop humming. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, the Phoenix Protocol ready. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for everyone they'd hurt, everyone they'd betrayed. I took a deep breath, the salt air filling my lungs, and pressed enter. The harbor workshop was silent except for the hum of the laptop and the distant cry of gulls. My fingers trembled as they hovered over the enter key, the Phoenix Protocol loaded and ready. This was it, my grandfather's legacy, my fight, distilled into a single moment. I closed my eyes, picturing his face, his voice. You're the best of us, Allie. I pressed the key. Across Boston, in the gleaming boardroom of Davenport Dynamics, chaos erupted. I'd hijacked their presentation screen, the one they'd prepped for the multi-billion-dollar merger. My grandfather's final video log played first, his frail voice cutting through the room like a blade. If you're seeing this, my family has betrayed me, he said, his eyes piercing even through the screen, and Allison is the only one who can stop them. The board members, suits with egos as big as their bank accounts, froze as the screen shifted. A side-by-side comparison flashed up. My grandfather's notarized will, leaving me controlling interest, next to the forged one with my mother's looping signature. Gasps rippled through the room. I could imagine their faces, pale and stunned. Then came the real blow, a live simulation of Project Chimera's back door. I'd coded it to be visual, brutal. Terabytes of their own sensitive data, financial records, private emails, siphoned in real time, displayed for all to see. Their secrets, their lies, laid bare. At the same moment, my data package hit inboxes at the SEC and the Boston Globe. Every detail. Richard's back door, the forged will, the merger's dirty underpinnings, backed by hard evidence. I leaned back, my heart pounding, watching my monitors as the feeds confirmed delivery. The merger was dead before the board could even vote. I didn't need to be there to know what happened next. Richard's face would have gone gray, his hands shaking as he realized the empire he'd built on lies was crumbling. Lauren, always so polished, would be screaming at her assistants, her PR-perfect mask shattered. My mother, God, I didn't want to think about her. Her silence at that dinner, her refusal to meet my eyes, was louder than any confession. My phone buzzed, an encrypted message from Marcus. You did it, kid. They're scrambling. Stay low. I didn't reply. I was already packing, moving to the next phase. The Phoenix Protocol wasn't just about destruction. It was about rebirth. I'd exposed the flaw, but now I had to protect the system, the clients, the people my family had endangered. I slipped out of the workshop, the laptop in my bag, and disappeared into the city's gray dawn. The fallout was immediate. News alerts lit up my burner phone. Davenport Dynamics merger collapses amid fraud allegations. Social media exploded, X posts flooding with hashtags like Davenport Down and #Chimera Scandal. I didn't read them. I didn't need to. I'd seen the truth in my grandfather's logs, felt it in the weight of my mother's betrayal. This wasn't about revenge, it was about justice. But justice didn't erase the ache. I stopped at a diner, the kind with sticky tables and coffee that tasted like regret. I sat in the back, my hood up, watching the TV above the counter. A reporter stood outside Davenport Dynamics headquarters, her voice sharp. Sources confirm federal investigations are underway. Richard Davenport has reportedly fled the country. I stirred my coffee, the spoon clinking too loud. Fled. Of course he had. Cowards always run. I thought of Mrs. Rodriguez. Safe now. Her eviction notice paid off with the cash I'd left her. I thought of her granddaughter Maria, who'd hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "You're like a superhero," she'd said, her eyes wide. I wasn't. I was just a woman who'd lost everything and found a way to keep going. But her words stayed with me, a small light in the dark. The weeks that followed were a blur. I didn't go back to my apartment or the workshop. I moved between safe houses, cheap motels, anywhere I could plug in the laptop and keep working. The SEC reached out through Marcus, offering me immunity in exchange for my help. I agreed, not for myself, but for the clients whose lives hung in the balance. I became a ghost in the system, a restructuring supervisor for Davenport Dynamics, working with a new independent board to fix Project Chimera. The back door was sealed, the code rewritten line by painful line. I worked 18-hour days, fueled by coffee and the memory of my grandfather's voice. The new board was wary of me at first, expecting the unstable Allison they'd heard about. But I didn't care what they thought. I wasn't there to prove myself to them. I was there to finish what my grandfather started. Lauren's trial was all over the news. She didn't look polished anymore, her hair limp, her eyes hollow as she faced charges of fraud and conspiracy. My mother wasn't charged, but the headlines didn't spare her. Davenport, matriarch implicated in forgery scandal. I didn't watch the coverage, didn't read the articles. I'd heard her voice on that audio bug, defending the forgery as for the best. That was enough. I liquidated my shares, the ones my grandfather's will had restored to me, hundreds of millions, more money than I'd ever imagined. I didn't want it, not for myself. I set up the Phoenix program, a foundation to fund MIT scholarships, mentorship, and startups for young women in STEM. The first recipient was Maria, Mrs. Rodriguez's granddaughter. I was there when she got the letter, her hands shaking as she read it aloud to her grandmother. "Full ride," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Mrs. Rodriguez pulled me into a hug, her voice thick. "You're an angel, Allison." I wasn't. I was just keeping a promise. Months later, I walked along a Boston beach, the sand cold under my boots. The ocean stretched out, endless and gray, the waves washing away the noise in my head. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Uncle Leo begging for money, his text a pathetic string of excuses. I deleted it without a second thought. Then it rang, my mother's name flashing on the screen. My thumb hovered over the decline button, my chest tight with the old pain. I could still see her at that dinner, her hands folded, her eyes anywhere but mine. I silenced the call and tossed the phone into my bag. The wind picked up, tugging at my hair. I stood there watching the horizon, and for the first time in years I felt light. Free. My family had taken so much. My name, my future, my trust, but they couldn't take this. My worth wasn't theirs to give or take. It was mine, built from the ashes of their lies, coded in the lines of the Phoenix Protocol, sealed in the scholarships that would outlive me. I turned back to the ocean, the waves steady and sure. Somewhere out there, my grandfather was smiling. I could feel it, and for the first time, I smiled back. The deepest betrayals can either be an anchor that drowns you or the fuel that launches you. I chose to turn the pain of my family's deception into the Phoenix program, creating opportunity from ashes. If you're facing darkness, remember this. You can be a victim of your story, or you can be its hero. Use your struggle to build something better for yourself and for others. That is the ultimate checkmate. If my story resonated with you, hit the like button, and tell me in the comments what you've built from your own challenges.